Hi, my name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help people to build an intentional and significant legacy for themselves and their families by coaching them in real estate. Now, the biggest thing I can do today to help you make that happen is to give you a really thorough market update and let you kind of take the temperature on what's going on in Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage is obviously the biggest market here in South Central and really all of Alaska. And so this is going to be a really good time to kind of take the temperature, see how we're doing. We'll be looking at the residential, the condo, and the multifamily market. There's some interesting stuff in here that even I am taking really close note of. Before we get started, do make sure you give this video a like, and make sure if you have any questions, post those in the comments section down below. Now, without further ado, let's go and get into today's video. Now, the first thing that we're going to look at on the residential market is just the number of active properties that we have available on the market. This over here clearly shows a precipitous drop in the amount of inventory we have available in Anchorage. For example, in 2019 in December, we see that we actually had about 655 homes. The next year, this past December, we saw there was about 355. So that really shows we have about half the inventory of what we usually have this time of year. And it's not just December. You can see behind me, not a lot of inventory really for the entire year leading up to that point in 2020. So that's what we have for the number of active listings available in Anchorage at the moment. The next thing we need to look at is the number of units that actually sold in Anchorage during this time period. So we see over here that actually a lot more units sold in the municipality than what's sold in previous years. And it's not just the past year in December. We do see really across the board that Anchorage sold more properties in 2020 than it did in previous years. So even though the inventory is down, the number of properties that actually sold is up. Talk more about what that means in the summary. Third thing that we're going to look at is the average sold price in Anchorage during kind of the time frame that we're looking at, of the time frame where we actually have accurate information, which is December. Now, we see that in this time frame, the average sold price went up to about 406. Now, that's significant because in previous years, that's actually an average sold price that would have rivaled or outright beat most of the summer average sold prices, which is historically when we see our peak sold price for the year. But we see that it was about 406, the average sold price the year before about 393. So $13,000 swing upwards is what we're seeing in the average sold price. And it's not just in December. Again, right behind me, kneel down here a bit, right behind me, you see that there are a lot of months where it is at or way above what we normally would see. So more about that in the summary, but yes, average sold price is up. Now let's go ahead and take a look at condos now. Again, first thing we're going to check out is the number of active condos that are on the market. This over here shows us that the number of condos that were on the market last year, right about 345. This year, 289. So pretty similar story of what we're seeing on the residential market, just not to the same extent. And you can kind of see that story back over here as well, really kind of applying across the entire year. Let's take a quick break from today's video. Do you have any topics or any questions you would like to see answered in a future video? If you do, make sure you post those down below so I know exactly how to kind of direct this channel to make sure it's answering the questions that you have. It can be about Alaska, it can be about the specific real estate market that we're in. Whatever it is, please make sure you post those in the comment section down below so I know exactly how to direct this channel. Now, let's go and jump back into today's video. Now, like residential, let's take a look at the number of properties that actually sold in this market for the condos. Now, over here, we see there was about 82 properties that sold last year in December. This year, this past December, it was about 125. So not a huge sample size, but that is a significant uptick in the number of properties that actually did sold. And you see over here, looking at the grand total, that's obviously a lot more homes that sold than what we saw in the previous years. So the number of properties that sold for condos is up. I'm going to show you something that's a little interesting because we see over here what we said before, inventory's down, the demand is up because obviously the number of sold units is up, but we see that the average sold price in December actually went down because we see here average sold price last year right about $249,000, whereas this past December, a couple of weeks ago, the average sold price for condos was about $240,000. So that's interesting. We'll talk more about that in the summary and what the implications might be. Let's switch gears one more time and take a look at the multifamily market. So just like residential and condos, first thing we check out is the number of active properties that are on the market. We're actually seeing the inventory is down a bit, but not nearly as much as it is with the residential and the condos. There's about 178 properties that are multifamily on the market. Now we're seeing it's closer to about 160, 161. So a decrease in inventory, not nearly as extreme as what we saw with the residential or the condo market. So inventory's down, but it's not drastically down. Now let's check out the number of sold properties for the multifamily market. Now over here in December, we're seeing that the average sold number of units that sold was actually about 27 the year before, whereas this year it was 36. So that definitely is an uptick of properties that were sold. And actually, as you're seeing over here across the entire year, we also did see an increase as well. So that's pretty favorable. It does mean that multifamily properties are in high demand, or in higher demand than what they were before. Not nearly as high as we might see with residential, but still doing pretty good. Talk about more about that in the summary. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and summarize across the board what we're seeing for these three sectors of the real estate market. Number one, the residential. We're seeing inventory is down. We're seeing the number of units is sold is up, and we're seeing the average sold price going up also. This is really the indications of a really healthy market. If you are wanting to get your home sold, probably not going to find a better time than this. I've kind of talked about this in a previous video. I don't see us just falling off the edge of the earth and having a big foreclosure crisis that some people were predicting. It's something we're not going to ignore with properties in delinquency going forward, but what we're seeing is not going to drastically impact us immediately. If it does impact us, we're just going to see a lot of properties come on the market and not likely to really see which is in distress and which one isn't. So that's what we're seeing for the residential. If you're looking at buying, still a good time because of the interest rates. We have to be very intentional and very specific on what we're looking for to make sure that you don't miss out, because there's a lot of competition right at the moment. Let's take a look at condos. It's going to be a similar story to what we're seeing for the residential market. Inventory is down, number of units is sold is up, and the average sold price actually went down a little bit. So this can be chalked up to a number of things. Number one, the condo market isn't as big as the residential market. So whereas with the residential market, we can truly get an average that's difficult to make a whole lot of headway one way or the other. With the condo market, it's smaller. So in the previous year, having a couple really high-end condos sell all at once could really throw off the numbers. So what we're seeing is that the prices are staying pretty steady for condos, and a lot more of them are selling than what we normally sell. So that is for the condo market. Now let's take a look at the multi-family units. What we're seeing, inventory is down slightly. What we're seeing is the number of sold properties is up, not drastically, but it is up. And we're also seeing the average sold price actually has gone down a little bit. So what this is really telling us is that multifamily properties are in demand. People are still buying them, but it's not necessarily the thing that everybody's just rushing out and grabbing right now. Investors want to take advantage of the low interest rates just like everybody else, because that obviously can be a big impact to your bottom line. This is what I would say about the multi-family properties when we're looking at them in a summary like this, is that it's a smaller pool and it also encompasses all multi-family properties. So it might be the little duplex, it might straight up be, the 18-plex or the 12-plex or whatever plex you want to name there, that's getting included in there. So it's very hard to get kind of an average, and that's why a lot of our data looks a little patchy and looks drastic on certain years, just because you get one enormous property that sells and it can throw the rest of it off. So that's what we're seeing. If you have any questions, please by all means reach out to me. I have my link to my Facebook page down below, and I can be contacted directly through there. If you would like to listen to the Alaskan Journey podcast, that is going to be in the description section down below, where we kind of talk about where the economy is heading in 2021. So do make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out the Instagram page. That again is going to be down below. And I sure hope this has been useful for you, and I'll see you next time.